Hey everyone, I'm Kevin with JcrOffroad, and in this video I'm going to walk you through how we install our Bronco winch plate. Now when you open up your packaging, you're pretty much going to see what I have out here. You're going to have the winch plate, your replacement recovery points with mounting provisions for that winch plate, along with a hardware pack. Now this is going to be a pretty straightforward install, so let's get started. Now the first thing you're going to need to do is remove these plastic cover panels from each side. For those, they're just going to be held in with 4 plastic clips. You'll just need a panel tool or a flat screwdriver. You can pull the center out, and that should allow you to remove the entire clip. There's going to be 2 down here at the bottom, as you see, as well as 2 more located up here by the factory recovery point. Now with those out of the way, there's still a couple retaining clips in here behind this panel. So to get those freed up, you're simply going to grab the back edge of the panel and kind of gently but firmly, if that makes sense, pull out, and that should release those clips. Do the same thing over on this other side, and that'll pop those free. Now go ahead and do the same thing over on the other side. Next, if your Bronco is equipped with the factory parking and proximity sensors, you're going to need to locate that electrical connector for that harness that ties the bumper harness into the vehicle and disconnect it at this time. Once you have that done, you're going to need to grab a 15mm socket and take out the 3 mounting bolts on each side of the bumper. Now, these are the only thing holding the bumper up to the vehicle, so this would be a good time to either have the help of a friend or just to use caution, maybe leave one end loose on each side until you're ready to pull this off. Now with all that hardware loose, you can go ahead and remove these last 2 mounting bolts and lift this off of the vehicle. So now that we have the bumper off of the vehicle, you're just going to need a 10mm socket. You're going to be removing this small bolt back here. There's 1 on each side, and these are just going to allow you to pull the factory recovery points off of this bumper. Now you can just go ahead and do the same thing over on the other side. Now previously, during our R&D process, when we had one of these all torn apart, we went ahead and filmed the wire harness modifications that need to be made if you want to retain your proximity sensors while running this winch plate. So we'll show you that clip and then get on with the install. So now that we have the bumper off of the vehicle, we're going to begin showing you how to disassemble this to the point that you can access what you need to modify this harness and install this inside proximity sensor into your winch plate bumper. To begin disassembly, you're going to need a 13mm socket. You'll be removing these 4 screws on each side and then removing these mount plates. Now once you get those out of the way, you'll be able to access all the Christmas tree style retaining clips holding this harness into the bumper. So you can begin popping those out using a panel tool to free this up. With the main harness connection pushed to the side, you can come in from the back side and push through all of these oval Christmas tree style retainers from this metal bracket. Once you have those freed up, you'll need a T40 Torx bit to remove the 3 bolts across the top here, holding this in place, as well as 4 along the bottom. Once you have those removed, you can pull this metal structure from the back of the bumper and then repeat that same process over on the other side. With both of those metal brackets out of the way, you'll come down here to the bottom center portion of the bumper. You'll have 3 more of those oval Christmas tree style clips to push through the bottom. And then again, using your T40 Torx, you'll have 2 bolts here to remove, and then you'll have to flip this over and get these 3 from the other side. While you have the bumper in this orientation, you're going to have 2 more of those clips that need to be pushed through to free it up from the bumper. Now, using just a little bit of caution to hold on to that metal inner structure, I can flip this back over and remove this inner. So at this point, you'll need to remove this sensor from the bumper. For that, get 1 finger on the outside, applying pressure back in, and then there'll be a tab here and here on either side of the sensor that you can pry out, and then pull that free. Next, take some wire cutters and remove this factory clip. As with all of this, use caution to not cut into this harness and damage any wiring. And then you can come down here either with a razor blade, or if you can get your cutters behind it, and cut the tape to free this clip up as well. And get that out of the way. For the next part, you're going to need a nice sharp razor blade. And what we're going to be doing is trying to work from this connection here all the way down to the next main connection on the harness here, where it ties in to this ambient air temp sensor. And we're just going to be trying to cut through the outside tape on this harness. And you may get lucky, you may be able to cut just through a small part of this tape and get it to unravel the rest of the way down. But your goal here is to access these wires inside of this loom. So I'm just going to start up here, very lightly trying to score this until I see the tape split, and continue working my way down without digging into the harness and the wires themselves. Now once you get to this point and you can access this portion of the harness, you're going to see that the wires running out to this sensor are taped in line with the wires that run out to the furthermost sensor. So you're going to need to lightly come in here and cut this tape, which should free these wires up and allow you to continue working your way down the harness to this next main connection. So once you got this pulled out just like this, you cut all the way back to this next connection, you're simply going to need to tape all this back up, as well as these new wires that are exposed out here to protect all this, and that will give you the slack you need to route this out into the winch plate. So now that we have those off of the bumper, we're ready to loosely install this back on the vehicle. Now, if you're doing this with a little bit of help, you can probably put this back on with the new mounts and recovery points at the same time. However, if you're doing it by yourself, it's going to be a good idea to just hang this on here with one bolt on each side, leave it loose, and then one at a time come back and install that tow point and mount combo. So like I just mentioned, I've got this hanging up here loosely, just one bolt on each side. And what I'm going to do is simply, while supporting the bumper, I'll remove that factory bolt. And then you can grab your new recovery point and winch plate mount. That's simply going to install at this point over the bumper and over those mounting holes, and then get fastened back in place using those original factory bolts. However, when you put these on this time, you're going to want to grab the larger washers from your hardware pack before installing them. So now that we have all three bolts started on this side, I'm just going to run these most of the way in to kind of snug it up, however leaving them just loose enough that we have a little side-to-side adjustment here as we get everything else installed. Okay, so now that we have both of these mounts loosely installed, you're going to want to grab your winch plate, and you can simply slide this over top of each mount. Get this setting back in place, and then it is a good idea at this time to just loosely slide a couple of the mounting bolts through these sides. That's just going to prevent this from falling off if it gets hit anywhere along the way. Now, the reason we're doing this at this point is to set the width of these mounts. So once we have this in place, a couple bolts in it, you can come back here using your 15mm socket and tighten those factory mounting bolts to the frame. Also, just to note, as you work through this step, these are the bolts that also set the location of the entire front bumper. So you want to be paying attention to both the winch plate being center as well as that bumper as you're tightening all this stuff up. Then once you have all that hardware tight, you're going to need to lift this winch plate back off of the vehicle one last time so that we can reinstall these plastic cover trim panels. Then after that, you can set your winch plate in place for the final time. And then on each side, install 3 of your 1/2-inch bolts with washers, followed by a washer and a nylock nut here on the inside. Then after you get all your 1/2-inch hardware started, come back in with a 3/4 inch socket and wrench and tighten these up. So if you're going to be installing the winch plate on a Bronco equipped with this factory capable bumper, you are going to need to make some minor modifications to these outer plastic trim pieces so that they can be installed. So what you're going to be modifying is simply just cutting out a little bit of the plastic here in the bottom of this center section. To determine what needs to be cut, you can simply slide this up through behind the winch plate, and then using these tabs on the back of the panel, you can get it loosely lined up and located here. And then you can kind of make a mark on either side of this D-ring. Before pulling this back out. So once you have that marked, go ahead and pull it back out, and you're going to need to make a cut. You're going to be basically cutting toward the outside of your lines, and then you're going to come as far forward as basically you see right here, kind of just removing the bottom flat of this material and not going out into the front face on this trim section. So once you get that cut out, it should look something like this, and then you can slide it back in place before lining up these tabs and permanently popping it back into the bumper. Once you're happy with that, you can simply go repeat the same process over on the other side. So now that you have the winch plate fully installed, if your vehicle is one that's equipped with those parking sensors, this is when you're going to need to come back in and route that sensor up here through the bottom of the winch plate and get it installed to the front mounting hole. If yours doesn't, like the one we're working on here, you're simply going to install these black plastic caps into each of these holes. Now at this point, you can go ahead and get your winch installed as well. That's as easy as dropping it in through the top and then using the bottom access holes to install all that winch hardware. Obviously, once that's in place, you can go ahead and install your fair lead as well as your winch hook. So once you get that winch wired up, your install is complete. Now, if you guys have any questions about this winch plate install or any other product we offer here at JCR Off-Road, feel free to reach out to us. You can email us at info@jcroffroad.com or give us a phone call, 269-353-1184.